Rassie Erasmus has been called a genius and even reckless at times. Throughout his coaching life, he has been doing things differently. In this video, we will have a look at what Rassie Erasmus has done for rugby during his coaching career. In a quest to find out just how good of a coach Rassie Erasmus is, we need to turn back to time to where it all started. After retiring from local and international rugby in 2003, with 36 international caps and a bronze medal at the 1999 World Cup to his name, Rassie Erasmus in 2004 was appointed the head coach of the Bloemfontein Cheetahs team in the Vodacom Cup side. And in his first year, he led the team to the semi-finals only to lose to the Blue Bulls. The next year, Rassie made a step up to head coach of the Freestate Cheetahs for the Currie Cup campaign. Doing things differently started immediately for Rassie, positioning himself on the roofs of stadiums to get a better view of his players and a flow of the game. By then, he was already using a light system to communicate to his players on tactics and plays, guiding them throughout the game. Rassie went on to lead the team to their first Currie Cup title in 29 years. The following year in 2006, with Super Rugby expanding from Super 12 to Super 14, Rassie took charge of the Cheetahs in their maiden season, finishing in 10th place with 5 wins and 8 losses. Later that year, Rassie and the Cheetahs went on to retain the Currie Cup in a nail-biting final that saw the match between the Cheetahs and the Blue Bulls, ending up in a draw, sharing the title for the year. In 2007, the Cheetahs finished in 11th place with 4 wins, 1 draw and 8 losses. After the Super Rugby campaign, Rassie left the Cheetahs franchise to take a technical advisor position for the Springboks ahead of their World Cup Rugby campaign. But Rassie's time with the Springboks was cut short, and Rassie joined the Western Province ahead of their Currie Cup campaign as the Director of Rugby. Rassie unfortunately missed out on going to the World Cup, in which saw the Springboks won the tournament. In 2008, Rassie was named the head coach of the Stormers for their Super Rugby campaign. He took the team that finished in 10th place a year before to narrowingly missing out on the playoff games, ultimately finishing 5th place. In 2009, the Western Province and the Stormers revamped their structure and Rassie moved into a senior professional coach of the region, while Alistair Coetzee took over as head coach of the Stormers during their Super Rugby campaign. With the new structures in place, the Western Province and the Stormers saw great success, reaching the finals in both the Super Rugby and the Currie Cup, but falling short on winning both titles. With the structures working, the Stormers' consistent form continued till 2012, where they finished first in their conference before being knocked out of the tournament, losing in the semi-finals. With the 2011 World Cup around the corner, Rassie again joined the national side as a technical specialist, but as painful as it is to look back on, the Springboks were knocked out of the tournament during the quarterfinals against Australia. With Heineke Meyer being named as a replacement for Peter de Villiers, Rassie left the Western Province and the Stormers to take on a position with the national team as a general manager of high performance. Part of Rassie's responsibilities within this role was to set up a blueprint to improve rugby from a junior to senior level. This is where Rassie started the EPD program, short for the Elite Player Development Program, and the Mobi Squad, which is the two most important steps Rassie took to get the Springboks where they are today. Back in 2012, a Springbok quota system was very much still a thing. Rassie realized that there was an already established elite pathway to provincial rugby from an under-16 level, but there was a need to ensure that all talent was being seen. And this meant that the players outside the traditional schools, the late bloomers, needed a way into the system when they were found. Along with the EPD program, a Mobi unit was created, where a contracted team of specialists will visit franchises, the South African national teams, and even schools to share their elite rugby knowledge and trends within the game. The Mobi unit also acts as scouts for players that were previously missed and link them up with the EPD program. When asked later in his career between the 2019 and 2023 World Cups on if holding up the Rugby World Cup trophy in 2019 was his greatest sporting moment, Rassie simply said, "No, what was better was watching the players people doubted like Makazole Mapimpi and Cheslin Colby score the tries in the World Cup final with such ease. It is because of the EPD program that we today get to see players like Makazole Mapimpi, Lukanya and Kurtley Arendse." In an interview in 2018, Matthew Pearce asked Rassie for his view on how we will achieve transformation targets as the head coach of the Springboks.
I want to talk about transformation because SARU's transformation policy has been openly published And so it's a two-part question. One, in your role as interim head coach of the Springboks, heading to Rugby World Cup in Japan in 2019, and also now as Director of Rugby beyond that, just what you are going to do to meet those objectives of SARU as a Springbok coach, but then also beyond Rugby World Cup, what you do within the structures of South African rugby, provincial rugby, franchise rugby, to ensure that we are getting these things right.
Yes. Let me start with the Springbok coaching job, first of all, in transformation. Matt, there's a clear, and I said it the first day when we had an interview here, there was a target of 45% this year, and next year there's a target of 50%. So the first thing, I didn't reach the 45%, and for me, and I'll explain it in detail, maybe let's spend some time on this. So 45% is a number, and you have to reach that number. And why people do that is, if you don't put a number to it, eventually people are just going to find excuses and say, those who don't want to fix it, those who don't really believe it, are going to find excuses and say, oh, well, we had so many injuries, X, Y, and Z. And if there isn't a number, the reason there's a number put to it, to put the excuses away and the things away and say, listen, are these guys really transforming? Transforming is change, changing the team, changing the environment, giving the same opportunity. So first of all, you must go and look at our management team and see these guys are really representative. If I don't want to go through the management team, we've got a great management team who I think is world class, from the medical team right through to the conditioning and the operational guys. They're world class. So that target's achieved. Then you go and look at the team. When Bees got injured and Wari got injured and Lukando got injured and Mapimpi got injured, I don't want to cheapen transformation, because we all know when we sit there in a team meeting what has happened in the past, because there wasn't numbers put to it. A black hooker will get injured, and now you have to put a white hooker in there, and then you'll drop a white winger and put a black winger there. And that's when transformation becomes a joke. When people get upset, fans get upset, black players get upset, white players get upset, because you're now sitting in front of a team and you're taking this guy off and putting this guy in to get the numbers right. But if you've got a more long-term vision in terms of, listen, boys, let's give the guys exposure slowly. I'm just going to take you quickly through what excites me a lot. If you think about it, a guy like Oxniche, I don't think he'll be ready for the World Cup next year, but he's played for the Springboks. You've got Bees, you've got Bongi, you've got Chili. A guy like Trevor exactly know where he stands with us. He can definitely go to the World Cup, but there's some certain things he must work on. But he's one of the guys. Marvin Ori was there, Noche was there, Opa was there, obviously Sia's our captain, Ambrose is there, Elton is there, Damien is there, Lionel is there, Lucanio is there, Mapimpi is there, Sabu is there, Apiwe is there, Damien Willems is there, Colby is there, Gio was now on tour. So we are trying to create a squad that we don't have to do, which has happened in the past. And we mustn't talk past it, where because this player gets injured and we have to get this right, we start moving around. And that's when the whole transformation thing loses credibility. So yes, I know the last test match we had 8 out of 23. But I'm not going to cheapen it and lose faith in the play, and the players lose faith in one. I'll rather take the blame. And people say, Rassie, one of your KPIs is not achieved. He hasn't made it. And I will say, boys, here's the depth we've created. When we go to the World Cup, I'm sure out of those 24, 25 names I've just mentioned, we'll find out of the 31 enough to take to the World Cup. And that's why I feel the transformation goal has been achieved. Maybe not the number, but the goal has been achieved. And I must take the flak for the number. But I'm not going to cheapen transformation because the number couldn't be reached.
It is important for the story to see Rassie's view on transformation, an opportunity that was a major topic of conversation back then, that in recent years went silent, as the current Springbok team represents all walks of life within the country. In 2016, Rassie moved to Ireland, where he became the Director of Rugby for the provincial side Munster. Just 3 months into his position at Munster, and with the sad passing of then head coach Anthony Fowley, Rassie took over both positions and acted as the director and interim head coach of Munster. Rassie galvanised a heartbroken Munster and took the club to the semi-finals of the Champions Cup and the final of the Pro 12, where Munster lost to the then champions Scarlets. In a very tough season for Munster, Rassie managed to get the Pro 12 Coach of the Year award for the 2016-2017 season. In June of 2017, Rassie announced that he will be leaving the club and take up the Director of Rugby role for the Springboks. Rassie would stay on till December of 2017 to assist Johan van Graan in the transition period at Munster. Rassie's arrival as the Director of Rugby was greatly timed, as the 20 months leading up to his appointment under Alistair Coetzee as the head coach saw the Springboks take their first ever loss against Ireland on home soil, a first loss against Italy, and the biggest defeat against the All Blacks in a 57-0 horror show. Alistair Coetzee was sacked in February of 2018, and a month later Rassie took on both duties as the national head coach as well as the Director of Rugby. With a world ranking of 6th place at the time, Rassie took charge and made his first big call by appointing the first Springbok captain of colour, Siya Kolisi. He then went on to set his sights on the All Blacks test in Wellington, New Zealand. With back-to-back losses against Argentina and Australia, Rassie was under immense pressure. But with grit, a never-die attitude and a bit of luck, the Springboks managed to get their first win in New Zealand since 2009 and the first win over New Zealand in the Rassie Erasmus era. It wasn't the best start for a Springbok coach by any means, winning only 50% of all games in his first year as a coach, having lost to England and Wales in the year-end tour in Europe. After a loss to England, Rassie and Jacques had their first tactical play in the media. With Owen Farrell's hit on Andre Esterhuizen in the dying minutes of the game, it's still spoken about today. Later on, with media present at a Springboks training session, Rassie jokingly teaches Andre Esterhuizen a new tackle technique. Going into 2019, Rassie and the Springboks only had 5 tests leading up to the World Cup. Again, targeting the All Blacks test in New Zealand, Rassie did Rassie things by sending a core group of players to New Zealand a week ahead, still having to play Australia at home. The Springboks went on to draw against New Zealand and ultimately won the Rugby Championship. The Springboks under Rassie's guidance went on to win the 2019 Rugby World Cup, being the first team to ever lose a game in the tournament and win the title, but not without innovation. The Rugby World saw the birth of the Bomb Squad during the 2019 tournament, with the Springboks opting for a then against the norm 6-2 split in all of their knockout games. After the World Cup, in just 2 years as an international head coach, Rassie received the World Rugby Coach of the Year award and vacated his position as head coach of the Springboks to focus his attention to the Director of Rugby role. In January of 2020, Rassie's long-term colleague and master defence coach, Jacques Nienaber, was appointed as head coach of the Springboks, in a year that the world went through a pretty odd and difficult time, in which saw the Springboks not having played a single test in the year that COVID hit the world. With 2021 approaching, the Springboks had one game against the second-tier Georgia to prepare for the British and Irish Lions tour, a tour full of tense energy and drama. It started with both teams allegedly agreeing to keep the drama to a minimum and not to involve the media and let the tour speak for itself. Shortly before the first test, New Zealand referee Brendan Pickrell, who was appointed as the TMO ref for the series, withdrew due to the pandemic-related disruptions and travel bans at the time, accompanied by lengthy quarantine periods. The only viable replacement that could be found was South African referee Marius Jonker. This was an appointment Catlin didn't like. Catlin expressed his feelings in the media. "We tried to maintain as much integrity as we can. We've not questioned the referee or the TMO. We only questioned why there wasn't a contingency if people couldn't travel or were sick." With the 3 tests coming fast, Rassie shifted his role as Director of Rugby to World Rugby's favourite waterboy, bringing on refreshments for the players and using the position to communicate tactics and messages to the players. This wasn't against the rules of the game at the time, but it would be the first time World Rugby changed the laws because of something Rassie did directly. I cannot make this up. The actual rule now states, a water carrier must not be a head coach or a director of rugby. The Springboks went on to lose the first match of the Lions tour, and Rassie dropped this bombshell where he cleared the air in a video, pointing out what he feels were all refereeing mistakes made during the first game. The Springboks went on to win the next 2 games, winning the series 2-1. Even though the video was not meant to go public, Rassie received a 2-month ban from all rugby activities and was suspended from all match activities for an additional 10 months. A suspension that would see Rassie only returning to matchday activities in September of 2022. A return to rugby that would be short-lived, with 2 close losses during the Springboks end-year tour to Ireland and France. Rassie on his personal Twitter profile posted 7 tweets with video footage subtly pointing out the refereeing issues on both games. World Rugby again slapped Rassie with a 2-match ban, suspending him from all matchday activities for the last 2 games of that year-end tour. This time, World Rugby stated, "Match officials are the backbone of the sport, and without them, there is no game. World Rugby condemns any public criticism of match official selections, performance or integrity which undermines their role. The trust-based coach-match official feedback process and the values of integrity, respect, solidarity and discipline that are the heart of the sport." Moving into 2023, the Springboks sat at 4th place in the world rankings and only had a shortened rugby championship campaign and 3 warm-up matches to get the team ready for the World Cup. With the Springboks going down to a 15-point loss against the All Blacks in the Rugby Championship, Rassie and Jock Nienaber had to come up with a plan for their last warm-up game before the World Cup against the old foe. The Springboks faced the All Blacks at Twickenham, and boy, did Rassie and Jock deliver. Whether you love or hate the Springboks, the first ever 7-1 split will go down in history as a great piece of innovation within the laws of the game. The All Blacks suffered their biggest defeat against the Springboks with a 35-7 loss. The world had mixed opinions, with some loving the innovation and some calling it against the spirit of the game. During the World Cup, the Springboks had their toughest road yet to lifting the trophy, getting past Scotland and Romania with victories. The Springboks faced world number 1 and favourites to win the tournament, Ireland. The Springboks lost their pool game against Ireland, and Rassie went on to have his now famous rant against the Springbok team. Later on, with the win over Tonga, the Springboks faced France in the quarterfinals. Throughout the years under Rassie, the Springboks announced their team on a Tuesday, but for the quarters against France, the management team went quiet, holding off to the team announcement just 72 hours before the match, giving the French management team less time to formulate a game strategy against the Springboks for the quarterfinals. In the week leading up to the match, Rassie made a menace of himself, blasting the French anthem during all Springboks training sessions, over and over and over again, turning back the clock to 2022. It turns out that there was only one scrum between these two teams when they played less than a year ago at the time. And again, Rassie and co used this as motivation to innovate, with the infamous way in which Damien Willemse called for a scrum off a marked ball in his own 22. World Rugby again would later on change the laws so this could not happen. The Springboks went on to win all knockout matches and lift the William Webb Ellis Trophy for a record 4th time. And with that, Jock Nienaber leaves his position as head coach of the Springboks. 2024 is here and Rassie is the head coach of the Springboks again. And with that, Rassie received a new title. Dr. Johan Rassie Erasmus received an honorary doctorate degree from the Northwest University for his innovative and exceptional management of the Springboks during their victories of the 2019 and 2023 Rugby World Cup campaigns. His significant standing in the international rugby coaching arena, his strong drive and focus on diversity and inclusion, and his commitment to social responsibility. Rassie brought in a whole bunch of new coaches, most importantly Dwayne Vermeulen fitting into the Mobi Squad unit setup before being moved as a link between the coaches and players, Jaco Paper as the new laws advisor, Jerry Flannery as a defence coach who has worked with Rassie before during his time at Munster, and Tony Brown being appointed as attack coach. During 2024, the Springboks drew the 2-match series against Ireland, won the Rugby Championship and secured the Freedom Cup for the first time in 15 years. Rassie and his management did this while still keeping an eye on the future, using 48 players in the process. It'll be interesting to see what awaits the Springboks in the future. Love him or hate him, Johan Rassie Erasmus has always done things in his own way. A true character of the game we all love, pushing the boundaries endlessly and ultimately moving the game forward for all. I've left a link to a Google document with all my references down in the description below. If you would like to read up on where I got the information for this video, please feel free to do so. If you enjoyed this video, please show your support by hitting the like button, and please consider subscribing to the channel for more of the same rugby related content. And I will see you in the next one.